This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm Shannon Evans, your host. I write about a small town in Northeast Mississippi along the Tom Bigby River called Columbus. And today I am interviewing my friend Alan Aldredge, who also has a podcast and an adult beverage
Yeah,
because
uh,
it's Mississippi and we always need a good adult beverage after 5.
that's just it. It's
That's just it.
it's good to be with you, Shannon. I
So Alan,
appreciate you
tell us.
asking me to come on.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Tell us a little bit about, tell us the name and all the information on your podcast, and
Uh,
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Porch Talk. It is a creator uh creative podcast. It originally began on my porch in Kennedy, Alabama. And then I began working and catching up with friends in Columbus, and I started connecting with interesting people such as Jamie Nettles or a Colin Krager, people who I consider to be movers and shakers within the community. Uh, and the show kind of grew. Jamie allowed me to begin interviewing musicians who were passing through her Sunstroke House venue, and that really helped put Porch Talk on the map when it came to having clout within the music community to get more musical guests. Since then, it's become a national, international thing within the music community. I've talked to people from South Africa about their music, even the Ukraine and Russia. Uh, and it was very interesting times because it was right when that event popped off between the two countries, and but we didn't even mention that. I figured it would have been like beating a dead horse at that time because it was so convoluted with everything that the national news was doing. But we talked about just their music and well, years ago, before that had even happened, that how they got over here to America and they kind of live a gypsy lifestyle, just going from like a New York City to California back and forth. But yeah, small business owners, any entrepreneur minded is welcome. I mean, I have an affinity for the blues. You have come on my show once before, and we talked briefly about the blues. When you came on, it was mainly about Columbus, but uh, my goal and mission with Porch Talk is it's kind of grown, but the mission is just to curate and tell the story of music during this era of history and the creatives and the shakers within this culture.
We need to get together and talk about the blues again. I've got all kinds of stories to tell you about um, the things that have been going on lately with descendants and research that's going on out there. I think you'd love it. But
Yeah, I mean, it's always good, like just following some of the work that you've done and that I'm just really inspired by what you've done for those in the blues community.
well, thank you. So how many downloads are you at now? Do you know?
So when I started 2 years, I lost my download count because I was working with a different uh upload. I think at that time I was around 30 or 40, and now I'm sitting around 60. So well over 100. But
Good.
those numbers are not accurate. I know for a fact they're not.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and a lot of that, like I don't have all my numbers for Spotify, and like as of yesterday, I don't know if the show is going to remain on Spotify. They just renewed their policy, and one thing that I always do on Porch Talk is share music. And so I just dropped a big music episode yesterday, and they would not reinstate it. And I was like, well, music is a big part of the show, so I don't know if that means they're going to go back on the back catalog, or I don't know what that'll mean.
Hmm.
Probably not, but yeah, it's
Does that keep you off YouTube as well? YouTube podcast?
well, I've put some just like still videos on YouTube, but I typically only put like these Zoom calls
Hmm.
on YouTube, or if I happen to have a camera guy. But on YouTube, I won't play music because like right when they hear a music note, they're gonna
Hmm.
flag it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a problem. And that's especially hurtful when you know that the musicians aren't even benefiting from that.
Yeah, and I'm on top of that. Look, I wouldn't share any music that I didn't have rights to or
Mhm,
permission.
mhm.
And I mean, with some of the shows that I put on YouTube or even like Spotify or even some of the other podcatchers, I'll get an email being like, this episode's going to be demonetized because of the music on it. It's like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a game. So how did you get started doing this? Did you have another podcast first, or have you always just had Porch Talk? And by
I've
the way,
got
what's
another
the name?
I've got another one, but it's non-existent right now. It was called Illuminate, but that was after Porch Talk. Porch Talk it started exactly the name of the show. I had just moved back in this area from Mobile, and I was catching up with friends that I hadn't seen in 6 years. And we were just catching up, and then next thing you know, a keyboard or a guitar would come out and be like, "Hey, I've been working on this song. Like,
Mm,
maybe you could help me finish it. What do you think about this?"
hmm
And I was just getting into podcasting at that time and scouring through different music podcasts. I was like, I don't think anything exists like what we have. We'll have a conversation, and then at the end, we'll play music.
mm,
And then as the show grew, I was interviewing musicians, so that made it to where I didn't have to play on the show anymore, which was fortunate for everyone, I think.
hmm Well, I don't know. I like to hear you play.
Well, thank you.
So, um, how many episodes do you have out there?
550.
Oh my goodness.
And then there are the lost episodes. I mean, that goes back to some of the download count. Like I lost some when I was transferring, and then there are some that are only on YouTube, and it's it's
So,
crazy.
so are you podcasting? You've been doing this for 2.5 years?
Oh, 5 years.
5 years. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
So
Well, it's
roughly 100 to 150 episodes. So twice a week.
yeah. Well, here lately, like I started when it first started, it was once a week. I would drop an episode on a Tuesday or Thursday, and then there was a lot of interest in the show, and so I started doing Tuesdays and Thursday. And then for the past 4 months, I've been doing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's
Oh
been
my
3 a week.
goodness. That's insane.
And then there's some weeks to where I could do 4 or 5 a week, but I don't. I would like to get to that point, which is good. I enjoy doing that, and it helps with not only having ads on the show, and then like Manscaped and Caldera Labs, they sponsor the show, and
Oh, I didn't.
they
How did you
love
get sponsored?
they reached out to me through email.
Oh, wow.
I have no idea how they found me, but some of their guys in the marketing department were really into the show, and they was like, "Hey, uh, how many downloads do you get in a week?" And the first time Manscaped reached out, like I didn't have their numbers. I think I was like 150 or 200 a week. And they was like, email us back when you get up to, 3 to 500. And I was like, okay.
Hmm
And so like when I started doing 2 episodes a week and then 3 episodes a week, it was a lot easier to achieve that.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote them back and I was like, hey, I'm at the number now. And they was like, great, here's your promo code. And they, sent a whole package of goods and
Oh,
all
wow.
that. So
Well,
yeah, it's good peoples.
well, I hope I can find someone. I'm down. I'm getting about, I don't know, anywhere
Yeah, I mean,
from,
I see you're killing it. Like, well, you've been doing it for a few months now, and like you're probably about to pass me on downloads. It seems like before
well, I
long.
don't know about that, but I've got, I think, I started September 12th and officially started. And then I think today I'm almost at 55,000 downloads.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Like
Wow.
just with Red Circle, the podcatcher that I use right now, I think like I'm sitting around 60, and I've been with those guys for I think 2.5 years now or so.
Well,
But like but I don't
what's
pay
your
for their analytics, so I have no idea if that's accurate or not.
was probably I mean, you probably don't get the depth that you would if you paid for analytics. So but you're probably the what you're getting is probably
Yeah, the
accurate.
metrics probably good. Yeah.
But so where's your audience? Like I'm shocked. Like an audience. Who the heck in South Korea wants to know
Yeah,
about Columbus, Mississippi?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
not
yeah. I
like one or
mean,
two people.
I
Why do I have, I don't know, 9,000 downloads from France?
yeah, it's wild, ain't it? Like we have a big following in Europe. South Africa is huge.
Yeah,
Egypt is the second biggest country.
really?
Canada enjoys it. Uh, Eastern European countries.
Mhm.
Uh, some parts of Asia, like you said, like a Japan or even a Korea.
Japan,
Uh,
I understand because they've always been enamored with the blues and Southern rock, and you know
mhm.
and of course British rock. That's been a huge that's always been a huge draw with the youth there for.
Yeah, and also like it's just here in the States of, just within the Mississippi and Alabama area where I've been stomping around for most of my life. That's not even the bulk of my audience.
Mine either, which
It's
is
it's
just
New
insane.
York State, California, and Colorado.
And my other one's New Jersey. Why New Jersey? Don't they have
Right.
enough crazy people in there? Maybe they identify with our crazy politicians.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like I was talking with a friend the other day, like I had just seen your post with like the numbers that you were doing, and I just showed it to him, and I was like, she's killing it. And he was like, I mean, I follow it too, and I think you would be amazed when you start spilling some of the local tea around here. And I was like, I wonder if it is local though, because I was like, I know the way that my podcast goes, and it seems like everyone that knows me doesn't really give a damn, you know?
No, it's really funny. I mean, I know I have people walk up to me. I never go to Walmart. Okay. We call it Satan's store in our house just because you go, it's like people at Walmart's real. Okay. Especially in, Mississippi, if you go to Walmart, it's kind of like going to Dollar General. You don't know what you're going to get. So I tried, I thought I was being in stealth mode and I went at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I thought I'd get in, get out. I just needed one thing that I couldn't get anywhere else unless I ordered it on Amazon, and I needed it. So I was like, I'll run in. Go to the business section. All I needed was legal pads, just a stack of legal pads because I still write a
Hmm.
lot of my scripts longhand first. I love your podcast. I'm like, who? I don't even know this person from Adam's house cat. They know
Yeah,
me.
right.
And it just cracks me up. They're like, when you gonna write something else about, Nancy Carpenter, or when you gonna write about another murder? It's just
Hmm.
insane. So I'm not sure if it's good or bad that people know me now.
I mean, right when you started breaking that Nancy Carpenter story, and I remember we were sitting in Zachary's at the bar, and me and a friend were talking about it because I mean, you were breaking it on the socials, and I had known you, through your TikTok videos of doing like the history of these
Mhm.
buildings. And I was like, well, this is very interesting, and she's well versed in the town. And then next thing you know is like I see a post that you shared. Well, I didn't know that I could go as a Columbus citizen to Davis Wade and sit in the booth. I didn't know that my tax dollars were doing this. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh wow. And then like the more you kept digging, and I was like, we actually have a real scandal here.
Yeah, we do. She's gone March 31st, but she isn't gone yet. So, and then she's only going across the street to the Tennessee Williams building. So we got to watch because they get government funding too. I wouldn't care. I mean, I would do, but I wouldn't. But it's our tax dollars. And that's
Yeah.
what got me involved was this is, and it's not a little bit of tax dollars. Main Street Columbus has a budget of like, I don't know, 100 to $150,000. They don't get much.
Hmm.
They do. Look at all the people did you go to Wassel Fest?
Hmm.
You could not walk the streets of Columbus. It was elbow to elbow. It was, a mass of humanity. She does that on a shoestring. The CVB, the Columbus Visitors Bureau, tell me how many people were at Catfish in the Alley or the antique show. I mean, we're talking 40, 50 people. And
Yeah,
and she's
Catfish
got a
Alley
form,
is yeah.
she
It's
pays
like
those vendors. Those vendors, she pays them to come. I've never heard
hmm.
anybody paying a vendor.
Yeah, they usually have to pay to be there.
Yeah, no kidding. But she
Yeah, I
pays
mean,
them out of your tax dollars.
I remember I was one of the vendors working it that day, and like we had Terry Harmonica Bean, Honey Boy and Boots, some great musicians come out to play. And I was like, I just cannot believe there are not more people here.
No, she
Like,
didn't advertise till the last minute.
and
She got a
Catfish Alley
$4 million
is
budget, but she doesn't advertise.
right, and Catfish Alley is so historical. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a blues marker. I mean, you and I both know it's not in the right location, but
correct.
it's at least it's there.
Uh-huh.
And I
But
mean,
it's
I
not
even like,
promoted.
yeah, once again, I mean, that's another blunder. But I wonder, like with the journalism that you're doing and like the stories that you're sharing on this podcast, I wonder what that's going to mean for the marketing of Columbus. I think that'll be a bigger help, and it's free, like as far as like maybe drawing and luring people in. There was a podcast done. I can't remember the guy's name out of New York, but it was in Woodstock, Alabama. It was a podcast called Shit Town.
Oh, yes. I listened to every dang one of those. They were awesome.
Yeah, they were very captivating, and that also kind of put Woodstock on the map. Like that became like it was a very touristy thing.
Uh-huh.
And when I would tell people at the time I was living in the Tuscaloosa area, which is not very far from there, and like when I would run in from someone from South Alabama or neighboring areas, and they were like,
Lower
"That's
Alabama, as people in
yeah,
Mississippi have a
yeah."
bad
They was
habit of
like,
calling it.
"Yeah, L.A."
Yeah.
Right. And they were like, "Oh, Tuscaloosa, so like you're not far from Woodstock, huh? What do you make of all that?" And I was like, "Well, from everyone that I know personally that knows some of the people you probably heard on that podcast, that was not the way it was. It was a
Hmm.
little, it was a drama, just like anything else,
Yeah.
but captivating."
Well, I'll tell you what, mine's all public record. I will invite you, anything I put on here, you can find in public record.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Every
like P's and
story,
Q's.
every piece of history, I go out and do the research. But I find it in public record. I find it in newspapers, I find it in the courthouse, I find it in the library, I find it in Mississippi State's libraries. I go in the old court documents. I mean, you got to read between the lines sometimes and understand contextually, but there's some crazy stuff. I mean, last night's podcast, I'm surprised I didn't have nightmares. It was really, really, really a hard podcast to even record because it's
Ooh,
just the depravity of humans to other humans. So, but I mean, but it's history. It is what happened. And
yeah. I
you
mean,
can't change that. But I'm not going to paint pretty pictures too, because I know lots of people would like me to talk about, oh, well, you know, we did this and we did that. I'm like, well, no, you didn't. Those are lies. One of my
mhm.
favorite short ones that I did, and I'll do a longer podcast on it, but I put it up it's up in my YouTube podcast. You've been to Friendship Cemetery, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
So Friendship Cemetery was the white cemetery in town, and the black cemetery at the time was Sandfield, and Sandfield's over there near
Roach
Post
Park.
Park. Yeah. So
Of interesting, like we were talking about this, I think 2 nights ago. And I knew the story well. Like we were talking about, there was some digging done by some company and right by the roadways, and I mean, they were literally digging up skeletons. And I was like, yeah, I mean, when they paved that highway, Old 82 right there, they just went right over that part of
yep,
that graveyard.
yep, part of it. Well, those the Harley place, the hotel, the Sprint Mart are all sitting on top of what was originally graveyard.
Hologram.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the hotel has encroached even more on anyways, the city, I don't know when they're going to finish that case, but they got to do something. And that motor company on the corner, the one that's on,
hmm
is that 25th or 23rd? That's encroaching 30, I think it's 30 feet over and then it's 100 and something feet long that they've encroached. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
just helping
amazing.
themselves to it.
I mean, it's amazing what people will do, like with a fence and a property line. You just if you don't keep them in check, boy, they'll move that
Yeah.
fence and keep on growing and growing.
Well, so the motor companies put buildings and they've got stacks of old auto parts and stuff back there. The one that bothers me the most is that hotel. The hotel has moved their fence out, I don't know, 15, 20 feet. And then whatever the length of their place is, which is, I think is 110 feet. But they put a chain link fence up, just took whatever they wanted. Because their
Hmm.
property literally goes to the back of their building, plus, I don't know, maybe a foot. So that would have been their property line, their real property line. So when you go behind that fence, there's graves, there's headstones, there's markers back there. Some of the markers have been removed because they've expanded, they've added on like dwelling places and storage rooms and stuff like that back there. They've poured concrete on top of graves. I mean, it's hallowed ground and it's total disregard. And they've not been held in check. So I don't know
Hmm.
what I don't know what's going to become of that, but the city is aware of it. So I guess I need to go follow up and raise hell again. But
Yeah,
over
there's a
at
start.
yeah, over it, and I did walk over there. I mean, the mayor's aware. He was disgusted by it. He called the sec Secretary of State, sent some. I think they sent somebody. I can't remember who they sent, but they had somebody come and walk it. Plus, they were trying to figure out who owned the additional area, and I was like, I know who owns that. Um, it's the Edwards family, but Mrs. Edwards is quite elderly and frail, and I
Hmm.
think the funeral homes have somewhat taken advantage of it over the years. I don't know that it's conscious, but it's cheap and they can bury somebody. And I talked to one of the grave diggers and he says, well, we go along and they take divining rods. They do witching rods.
Hmm.
They figure out where the ground is undisturbed. And then they they run stakes down to make sure that it's not hitting an old grave. And then they'll dig and bury somebody.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, but they don't have
And this
GPR. I mean, that's a $50,000 machine.
and just something I wanted to talk to you about. Like, this is a guy. He's been checking out Columbus, very interested. This is an industry guy, of everything that we have going with the Golden Triangle, of all this industry that's coming in. We're talking billions of dollars.
Hmm.
And him and his family are interested in Columbus. He's like, you got a great geographical location,
Hmm.
a lot of great history,
Hmm.
for better or worse.
Hmm.
And you're right there on the river and there's culture.
Hmm.
And Columbus should be great, but it isn't.
It used to be.
And I
I
mean
mean, in my
that
childhood, we had significant cultural events. I mean, it was clean. I mean, this is post integration. It was people took pride in the community. Everybody did, and I don't know what happened. I moved away and gone to hell in a handbasket. So we got to bring it
yeah.
back. That's part of what I'm doing my podcast for is I could just rail on elected officials, uh, but I want people to understand why it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of like with Porch Fest, the music festival I have coming up at Munson Brothers on April 12th and 13th.
Oh,
I've
you're in
I've got
pilgrimage?
hmm?
Right at the end of pilgrimage.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I mean, I have musicians from all over the country. They're going to come to Columbus and play. And it's going to be a Friday. It's going to start at 5. So if you're getting off work, hey,
Hmm.
come by when you get off. Bring the family. It's family friendly. It's not going to be obscene or anything your kids
Hmm.
shouldn't see. And then Saturday we're going to kick it back off at noon, and we're going to go until probably 11.
Hmm.
And on Saturday,
They roll up the sidewalks of Columbus at 11:30.
that's what I hear. Yeah. But yeah, and like creating these events, like we do the Oktoberfest there, and I mean a lot of people come out to support that, and uh, with some of these events, well, it's really well advertised, so therefore it's marketed well and it works. And I mean the same is going to be true with
Is Columbus Visitors Bureau helping promote any?
absolute no, absolutely not. I mean
What
this is
about Main
our
Street?
own. I don't think so.
They probably don't have
I,
the
I
they don't have the financing.
you know, but I mean, like most of the advertisement that we're doing is just through Facebook ads.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's bread and butter right now with the age that we're in. But I mean, still to me, if I'm if I'm having a bite to eat at a Zachary's, or if I'm walking by the Columbus Art Council and I see on the bulletin of upcoming events, I mean, I guess I'm still old school and word of mouth in that regard. If I see the flyer, I'll take a picture, be like, oh yeah, I'll
Hmm.
definitely be there. But social media works really well for people today.
Yeah, I like the reminders and are you going to go? Interested in this event? I think those are
Yeah.
gold.
And also, I mean, like, even if it wasn't even on your radar, if you have a mutual friend, be like, oh, so I haven't seen her or him in a while. Oh, yeah, I might shoot
Mhm.
him a message. Hey, I think I'm gonna go. I'll see you there. It's good stuff. But like to what you were saying about beginning to take pride in the community again and putting on these events, like that's really something that I want to strive towards doing is bringing that culture back to town and like giving something for everyone to be happy and proud of. And yeah, we can rebuild this culture.
I think Ryan Munson has done a fabulous job at Munson
He's
Brothers.
a he's a shaker. He is.
Yeah, he really is. We need about 10 Ryans in this town.
It'd be great. And just more people to work together.
Are you
Uh,
still doing open mics down there?
I am. That kicks back off on the 11th of January.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll be down
Mm.
there. We like I might even get in. I'm gonna see if I can poke in and get him to go play. I don't know. We'll see.
I wish you would. We need
Yeah,
all
we
the
should
help that
bring
we
his
can
mandolin.
get.
He'd have a good time.
And that's another thing, like just like with music in the town, and maybe for some of the live events, I understand why, maybe someone doesn't go out as like, well, uh, he plays there every Friday night, or whatever
Hmm.
whatever you want to say, but it seems like there's always an ebb and flow, or maybe even a fair weather when it comes to music events,
Hmm.
to where people are really into it, or they're just wanting to do anything else.
Well, um, and this is kind of off topic, but the music has really died around here. I mean, I remember when music was massive in this town. You could go hear blues or rockabilly or rock or gospel, something. There'd be at least two events going on every weekend.
Hmm.
And now it
Um,
and it ends up being no offense, not you, but it ends up being the same old guys that I went to school with.
hmm.
And I literally know their song list because they haven't changed it, and it's yacht rock from when we were in high school. And I'll go, okay, they're going to play this, and then the next song's going to be this, and then they're going to play. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah, I know
so
what
how
you
do
mean.
what's your thought on music and because this was a rich community of music at one point.
I don't, they're still out there. And like, there are so many new young musicians who are, I think, beginning to try and find their way. I don't, I don't know where they are on Friday night. I don't know what they're doing. But I know
They're not playing in town because there's
but
no
yeah,
venues.
yeah, that's another problem. But he served on the city council and with the Green Cup districts that we just started doing. The district, I can't think of the name of it, but it's on the north side. And there was an old, like a restaurant. I used to go over there and eat on the north side. Uh, and the young man who was on the city council, it was his mom and dad's business. He's going to begin taking it back over.
Pierre
And
Beer.
so, yes,
Okay.
yes. And
Interesting.
so he was telling me that he wants to reopen and reestablish that as a venue again.
Oh, I
And
wish
so,
Jones's would reopen Jones's Cafe and then annex the side and do some music.
and I think that that's what we need. Like, with Main Street Ties begun to do music, Monson has music. The Art Council will do a music event every now and then. But we lost the Burning Piano down by Lowe's last year,
Yeah.
uh, and like you get one place and it seems like you lose another.
Yeah, and I thought the Burning Piano was well attended, and then all of a sudden it wasn't.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened there. I probably went there over a dozen times. I've even played there two or three times,
Uh-huh.
and always a nice atmosphere. I never had an issue with
Mm-mm.
anybody or
It was a great
anything, and
place.
I had a great time.
Well,
And
I
it
do know the
was,
cops like to sit out there and pop people.
yeah.
So that's quick at closing the place. What about Muddy Waters? Does Muddy Waters have music anymore?
The last event that well, no, it's been two events. So I think about once a month. They had a friend of mine from Hattiesburg. They had Tyler Tisdale come up and play,
He's
and
good.
uh,
I
and they
like him.
do. They recently had some kind of a day festival to where they had two or three heavier bands, like more of a metal kind of genre. They do that once a year.
You'd
But
think they'd bring some blues up here from Clarksdale.
I'm working on that.
You need to meet my friend Guitar Frenchie.
Oh, I introduced him to you. Yeah,
He's good.
yeah, that dude came from France, landed in California, met Shooter Jennings, Waylon's
Hmm.
son, and wound up in Texas. And then next thing you know, that he got struck with the blues.
He is good. And he's golden. I mean, he's the nicest guy. Really.
He's come on my show twice. I really like him.
Well,
French is a
I'm getting
great
ready to do
guy.
some work down in Clarksdale, and I can't wait to go hang out and I got a few other friends I want to meet down there and hang out and
I want to say it's tonight. He's playing at Ground Zero. I mean,
yeah.
and those are events
And
that
it was an
uh,
accidental event too. It was like
as,
unscheduled, like I don't know if somebody got sick and he's filling in or
well, that's a good fill-in.
it is. And he brings so much energy. I've seen him twice now and I'm like, dang, this is so much fun.
You know, he was in the Dallas Fort Worth area for years, and I don't even remember how he and I met. It was maybe through social media. I don't remember. And I had told him that I was in the Mississippi area. And he was like, I've been to Clarksdale a few times. And I said, well, why don't you come back? Like, and then next thing you know, he plays a show in Clarksdale and he goes back and I get him to come back on the show and he tells me off the record then I'm moving back to Mississippi. And I was like,
Oh
thank,
wow.
thank goodness. And
Yeah.
I mean, and now we have him. So, I mean, and I hope Mississippi treats him well. And, man, because I think he's great.
I love
Uh,
him.
and, and that's somebody that, I haven't announced, but I've been talking to. I want him to come play Porch Fest.
That'd be awesome.
And, and I think people would love it. I mean, he's still got the French accent, and man, I love talking to him.
he's cheeky as can be. He's funny.
And but like when you talk to him, I mean, it's like he is just as American as you or I, and
Hmm.
he believes in the red, white, and blue. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. He's a true convert. So what's been your most interesting guest you've ever had?
Oh, I'll tell you maybe a few. I really enjoyed, and I've had him several times. Abe Partridge.
Oh God. And I love Alabama Astronaut. He's
Yeah.
fascinating. I want to talk to him.
Yeah, I could probably line that up for you.
Oh, I'd
He's a
love that. I'd love to have him on my podcast.
dear friend of mine. And there's
I got a
a
snake handling story I want to give him.
and that is another one of those style podcasts. And Farrell Gibbs, he helped produce that and put
Mhm.
Alabama Astronaut together. And I was talking to Farrell right after it dropped because right when they dropped, I listened to the entire thing
I
in
did
one
too.
day.
I binged that.
I couldn't stop.
I stayed
And
up till 4 in the morning, just
and
mesmerized.
I called Farrell after I finished listening. And of course, I had done blown Abe up immediately after finishing the last episode. And I called him. I was like, Abe, that's one of the best podcasts I've ever heard.
I know. It's just
And he was
fabulous.
like, he said, you listened to the whole thing. And I was like, dude, it was like a Lay's potato chip. I couldn't stop.
And can't eat just one.
Yeah, that's it. And I called Farrell and I was like, I don't know if you were going after a shit town feel, but you knocked it out of the park.
He did. I
And he
wish
was
I
like,
could
that
get that kind of I don't know how they accomplish that, but dang, talk about
it's
master storyteller.
you have, let's say, 40 to 60 hours of recorded material, and you meticulously pick through it until I'm only using 10 hours of this because this 5 minute segment is a nugget of
Hmm.
of what would be 4 hours of piling through things
Hmm.
and just piecing everything together. And Farrell did such a good job of telling the story.
Uh-huh.
And it
Just
was wild,
amazing.
like Abe was just calling in from the robe,
Uh,
and even
I
when they were
loved when he
talking,
talked about being in the church and they turned off they cut the fuse box. The
yeah,
snakes are in the front, and he's like going, "Oh shit."
yeah, he's like, and he had his buddy who was like a daredevil, and he's like, buddy, we need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, yeah, like
And,
this
and then the
is
lights
not
came
my
back
thing.
on.
Snake handlers are a different breed.
I'm hoping to get up there, to Sand Mountain and some of those places with Abe. I didn't want to step on his turf and probably have him on the show, but I did want to get up there and meet those guys. I mean,
Yeah,
the Coots, they seem like sweet and
they
misunderstood
do. They just
people.
seem like genuine, God-fearing people. Although I could take him down to Yazoo County up in the hills up there, and he could meet their cousins. I got family in Blackhawk up in Carroll County. They're snake handling.
See, I didn't know it was still in Mississippi. I thought it had died out here almost
Oh no, it hadn't
completely.
died out. It's just not talked about because it's outlawed.
Mm, I see.
Because those guys got bit and it's been outlawed because and there's not enough anti-venom or whatever. Because once you've had the anti-venom, I don't think you can have it again.
I think you're right. And I mean, it was wild, like for them drinking strychnine or
Oh, because
battery acid or whatever else, and hearing the professor talk about it, he's like a whatever ologist, and he was like, "Well, they're probably taking charcoal before they do it," and hearing Abe spill, he's like, "Why would they know this is
this
100%
is what they
like
believe. Yeah, it,
it's
it
it
isn't
doesn't
Disney.
it's not show, they're not getting
Uh-uh.
paid to do this."
They believe it.
Hmm. So that
I
whole thing is incredible.
I'm telling you, I'll take you out to a couple of places out in the counties. It's going on. It goes on out. It goes on out near Hamilton, if you don't know that.
Let me pull it up here. I had a recent one that was uh really blew me away. Oh, there's a band down in Hattiesburg who I believe is probably going to be the next big thing. They're probably going to blow up.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Who's that?
Gr Grits and Greens.
Oh, I heard them the other day. I don't know
They're
if that was
great.
from you or someone else, but I thought they were fabulous.
Hmm. They're very interesting. And
What'd you like about them?
it was the same thing. Like when I was living down in Mobile, I remember seeing the Red Clay Strays first start. I was going down to Doherty's on Dolphin Island to see them,
Hmm.
and I would see them in town in Mobile from time to time. And it was always apparent to me that this is going to be a rarity because in a few years you won't be able to sit in a room this small and hear a band this good.
Hmm.
And now they have the tour bus and they're touring nationwide and
Hmm.
number one song on Spotify, and they're just and I see Grits and Green, they're on that same trajectory.
Yeah.
Their music is wonderful. It feels like Mississippi. It does have like a bluesy blues rock sound. It
Mhm.
also, like, for more of those who like a jam band like a Grateful Dead, it has that element in it as well. And I think that's a sound that the nation as a whole is really into right now.
That's interesting. I think that's exciting. Um, what was your favorite guest?
Hmm. That's that's fairly tough. I don't like I've been really heavy in the comedy lately, and a comedian out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He does a lot of cool projects. He wrote a book. Wasn't really writing a book at all. It was more of a commentary of Facebook perks that Facebook post that he did while he was addicted to painkillers.
Oh,
And the book was called On Perks. And it would be like just some of the most ridiculous posts. And like he got his comedy buddies to the audio version of the book is so much better because comedy friends will read the post and then they do commentary on it. And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, where in your wacky mind was you on this? And it's just a whole banter. And at the book release, I had just gotten into his podcast, and I hit him up, and I was like, "If you're into it, man, if you'd like to push your book, I've got a fairly large audience.
Hmm.
I'd love to have you." And I mean, I got to meet and talk with my favorite comedian over Zoom, so I really did
Oh, that's
enjoy
really
that.
cool.
He's so funny. Mike Rainey is his name.
Uh-huh. I'll have to look him up.
And he does his I typically hate true crime, but his podcast is called Little Stinkers.
Oh,
And
really?
so it's not just like, Gypsy Rose, she just got out.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason I had any idea who she was because of Little Stinkers. He covered her story. And so him and two of his comedy buddies are walking through like, these serial killers, or even like today's episode was with Sandusky out of Penn State,
Uh-huh.
who was a,
Oh,
a
that was
pedophile.
awful. Yeah.
And so these are the kind of they did R. Kelly, just these stinkers throughout history,
Hmm.
and like they're telling the story, and you can tell that Rainey used to be a school teacher because I mean, just like you do, he really backs up his homework with good
Hmm.
research,
Yeah.
and he does a good job of putting everything together
Oh, that's
in a very
cool.
in a very comical way that's going to
Uh-huh.
make you laugh, even
Talent.
if it's kind of screwed up.
Yeah. Well, I hope he doesn't giggle as much as I do. Sometimes I get tickled when I go,
Oh, he does.
I'm like going, oh my God, how could these people be so stupid? And I just get tickled at some of the stuff. I'm like going, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And they
He'll
got
do it
caught
like,
and they wondered why they got caught.
and I think he's got like a sister-in-law or something who is like a professional makeup artist, but he
Oh,
covered the Travis the Chimp story,
uh-huh, uh-huh.
and she did prosthetic makeup to where he looked like a chimpanzee.
Oh, wow.
And it was so wild. Like, and he did the whole episode like holding a banana. And it
Oh,
was it
wow.
was just the funniest thing. So that was probably it was a fun time. And
Huh. So what's next for you? What are you gonna do? Are
my
you got plans for the podcast to expand or what's your big dream?
I've right now is yeah, expanding absolutely. Going down to Hattiesburg. I'm in love with that town right now. I'm trying to catch as many business owners, musicians in Hattiesburg as I can. So the next couple of months is probably going to be a heavy focus on Hattiesburg, Laurel, and that part of Mississippi. I've got a few things national hung up. I am obsessed with the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania comic scene.
Hmm.
I'm going to try to continue to connect with those guys and have each of them on. That'll probably take me some time.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you a funny story. There's a guy
Okay.
in Philly who's from England. He actually, I think he used, I think he used to be in a band with Ian. He plays guitar. His name is Nigel, but he's got all his friends. He's now called Duke, but he's from
Oh,
he's from Manchester, England. So I mean, he's definitely not a Duke. But anyways, he likes to be called Duke.
yeah.
He
That's great.
so his barbershop in the day is a barbershop, and in the evening, and maybe it's just become full time. I don't know, but uh, he has people that come and just jam in his, and he plays blues.
Hmm.
These are the same people that think, Eric Clapton is the blues, and I have to go, no, 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 we have to talk about that. But
No, that's just blues influenced.
yeah, it's
That's
exactly, like, yeah, you love the blues, and yeah, but it's not the blues. Let me take you to Clarksdale and we'll talk about it. Anyways. But I think his new thing is, oh, look, we have my helper Vinny hollering back there. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Um, he's my stranger danger alert. Uh,
Uh-oh.
anyways,
Ain't got no creepers out there, do you?
but sometimes we get people walk down the street and who don't, you know, and he
Yeah,
doesn't like that. But
uh,
anyways, Duke is in Philly, and he has some interesting people. Right now, his obsession is jazz, which I find interesting, but
oh, that
whatever.
is, yeah.
So, but I'm thinking if you ever go, I'll just have to introduce you. We'll have to introduce you to Duke Nigel, and you can.
Yeah, I'd love that. But yeah,
Yeah.
uh I've kind of picked like with the podcast right now is pick like I had a Birmingham, Alabama stint that I did for a while.
Uh-huh. I remember
And
that.
I did the Golden Triangle stint for a while, where it was a lot of Starkville and Columbus, which
Mhm.
I live there, very easy to do. I had the Mobile stint for a while, and then it was Texas, California for a while. So like I want to continue like knocking off big blocks, but Clarksdale is on the menu. I want to get over there and spend some time with those guys.
Mhm.
I've My main focus until April is Porch Fest.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that everyone that I get signed up and ready to play, I want to make sure that uh, they're well taken care of. They don't have any questions, and finding sponsorship money and making sure everybody gets paid what I believe they deserve.
Mhm.
And after April is
Hey, have you applied for a quality of life grant from the CVB?
I'm glad you said that. I guess I should.
Yeah. I mean, you can get up to, I mean, Leroy Brooks and Kareem Kabir for their neighborhood events, they're getting $15,000, $10,000 grants.
Oh, mercy. I mean that would be a game changer.
Yeah. So
And
you
I would
might
be
have, I
able
mean,
to
if you just put quality of life grants and the Columbus Visitors Bureau, I downloaded it for a friend the other day so that because they couldn't find it on the website. So it's not easy to find, but if you just Google it, it comes right up.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've been working on since November is trying to find different grants or even
The city
uh
has a grant also. They have some
great.
ARPA. I don't know if the ARPA money will apply to it. You might have to form a 501(c)(3) to do it. But if you can prove you filed a 501(c)(3) in the state of Mississippi, you're considered one. So you can go ahead and apply for grants.
Oh, cool. Well, there you
There,
go.
you learned something new today. Welcome,
I've
welcome to
learned
my world.
I've learned quite a few things today, but it's always good to talk to you, Shannon. But yes, I mean, just back to what we were talking about with culture, is when I get this Porch Fest wrapped up, is I mean, beginning to look to what we could do next. Doing the podcast, 2 times a week, 3 times a week is great. I love doing it. I love sharing people's stories. I want to continue to do that, but I also want to have something real and tangible in the community.
Yeah,
And
I think that's important. But I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I'm not sure how to wrap my head around it yet, but I think I'm working toward it. And I think
I
that,
mean,
as long as,
come set up a booth at Porch Fest and like, like I'm sure there'll be people there very familiar with what you do, and then I mean they can get to know you and you can maybe pick up some new listeners if you'd
well,
like to.
it might be fun to record people, get them to record what their story is.
Yeah, I've got it right over there. I got a little Walkman. And that's what I've been doing lately is when I go out to these shows, like at Monson Brothers, like during the break or when they finish up, is hey, if you don't mind, will you come and sit with me in my truck? Or I'll sit with you in your vehicle and give me 15, 20 minutes and tell me your story.
Hmm.
And like I've done quite a few episodes like that, and the quality of it is fine.
Hmm.
It's not like you're talking
Yeah.
through the ocean or something.
Well, I've just started using, let me think if I can find the name of it. I've just started using a StreamYard. Are you familiar with StreamYard?
I'm not.
Well, I've got it as an app on my phone, but I use it on my computer too. We're not using it tonight because I'm really teaching it to myself. But StreamYard, you can do the same thing. And so it captures it, but it's in the cloud and it's in your StreamYard account, and then you can just
Hmm.
download it. But I've also done it where I just do it on my phone and upload it to YouTube.
Yeah, I've done quite a few things like that. Is like just record. I've got a little because I hate just like recording off the phone microphone. Now they're not bad microphones, but I've got a little microphone that hooks up
Yeah.
to my phone.
hmm yeah, I've got a little handheld Zoom recorder that does that.
Yeah, that's my little Walkman is a little
Uh-huh.
Zoom too. And like a lot of times if I need to, I'll put it up as a private video on my YouTube and then I'll come back,
And
download it
get it.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
dress it up, whatever I need to do.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
where can this audience find you? How can they follow you? Where can they find you?
Oh yeah, of on the social media of Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Porch Talk 101 will lead you to me. The logo is my face in neon with aviator sunglasses. And as far as the podcast itself, you can see some of these videos like this where it was a Zoom call where I had Mike Rainey or a Partridge, or you can watch those conversations on the YouTube page, Porch Talk 101, and then any podcast app, wherever you find Tom Bigby Tales. I mean, you can find Porch Talk there.
Cool. So if you wanted to leave my listeners with one thing to know about Columbus, what would it could be history, it could be the people, it could be music, whatever. What one thing would you want Tom Bigby Tales listeners to know about Columbus?
Some of the greatest people in the world. I grew up on the outskirts of Columbus, on the other side of the state line, in the Kennedy, Millport, Alabama area. As soon as we were old enough to drive, we would go to Columbus to go to the movies, to go bowling, to go to Walmart, to do whatever. And then when I was old enough to do nightlife, to play at bars, that's where I hung out. I moved down to Mobile to the coast, and I lived down there for 6 years. And nothing against those people, but the people of Columbus, Mississippi are incredible people that uh, I really love doing life with them. And it's one of the greatest communities I've ever been around.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on my show. I hope you'll come back when we get closer to Porch Fest. Reach out to me and say, hey, I want to
Yeah.
be on your show.
Yeah, I've come back on mine. I mean, we got a lot to talk about when it comes to the blues.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm serious. I'd like to support you in any way I can. I really enjoy your show. You've led me to a lot of other podcasters that I've really enjoyed. And maybe we could just do a murder podcast together.
I'm with it. Like you know,
We could
like
sit at
that
Munson's and talk about all the murders in Columbus.
that is one topic that I thought that I would never be into, and now I feel like I can halfway hold my own when it comes to that.
I tell you what, there's been some interesting ones throughout history in this town.
Yeah. I mean, not I know we're trying to get off here, but I think it may have been 10 years ago now. The creek that you're going toward the industrial side of Columbus, out toward Nova, that creek by the railroad track. Uh, a stray dog, or it may have been somebody's dog, but that dog supposedly drug out a human skull. And like when they figured out, oh, this was 8 years ago and it belonged to this girl. And I don't know if it was like I think that's a historical thing when it comes to Columbus
Oh, I
is,
need to know this one. I haven't written about this one.
but I don't know if they ever figured out like that was as far as it went. Like they found the skull, they figured out who it belonged to, and then it was just a code case.
Oh,
And
wow.
it
That's
and it
interesting.
seems like there's a lot of code cases in this area.
There are. And actually there are quite a few that the police are fairly certain, the investigators know, but they just don't have enough evidence to close it in court.
Yeah.
But, Usually people who do horrible things again somewhere else or in the same area, and unfortunately. But I'm always fascinated because as I do these historical murders, it's like I'm like going, wait a minute, didn't I read about that about 7 years ago in the paper? And it happened 100 years ago, you know.
Hmm.
But it's humanity is humanity, and people are awful and evil, but then there's also great people. So we're no different than any other small town. I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. People don't understand. Columbus is filled with, I mean, we've got incredibly intelligent people. We've got great writers. We've had great historical people who've come from this town, just like every other small town in America. But I
Hmm.
think what's unique is that since we're from the South, we have to tell the story. Other people, what's the thing from Designing Women? We don't hide our crazy. We bring it out on the porch and serve it iced tea and put it on for the world to see. I mean,
That's
that's the
it.
South.
Yeah, I mean, and just to go back to yours and I podcast just for a second, is I think like a lot of the listeners who are not from this area really are enamored with not only the story but with the accent that it's told in. I know like my friends up in Buffalo that listen to the show, that was their first thing that they said is like, really love what you're doing, but I stayed for the accent.
Hmm. Well,
And I was
I've
like,
worked
what?
hard to, I mean, I
To
know
lose it.
I still have an accent,
Yeah.
but let me talk to my mama
It's
or
gonna come out.
yeah, or let me talk to my sister or, let me get mad or, but um it'll come out or I'll sit around with all my friends I grew up with and the old patois comes out. But I think we are we're no more special than any other small town, honestly. But there's a charm about us, and I don't know what it is. Clearly, it's something because you and I both we got half of Japan listening to us, apparently.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and I mean that's what I was gonna tell you is like every time I see you post your numbers, I was like, the day it happens, I'm gonna tell her, but I was like, you just passed me. And I mean I think that is just a credit to like your hard work and I mean your journalism is solid. You back up everything that you have and uh you put everything together. And I have no idea how you do it. Like I have tried doing like a solo episode. Have my notes, have everything planned out, and then when I get done doing it, I was like, there's no way I'm posting that.
Oh, well, I do that, and then I just close my eyes. I
And
mean,
just yeah.
last night at the end of my episode, I was stammering. It was just such an upsetting content.
Yeah.
And then I was just like that, and I'm like, oh, it is what it is. And I don't edit. I mean, I could. I don't have fancy music. I'm
Yeah.
low tech. I don't want to be known for being polished. I want to be known for telling a good story.
Yeah, well, you're well on your way, and I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Um,
I mean, every time I tune in, I mean, what are we learning today? And you have there's a fire about it, like your trajectory is, you might come from the top rope, and then right when you think you're going back to the top rope again, and you're about to lay somebody out. So I mean, it's really well put together.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, so
I hope like,
I am not surprised by the success.
well, I tell you what, one of the things that I struggle with is I go, God, what, and I know it's going to have some ups and downs, but did I hold, was it good enough? Did it hold people's interest? And did I close the deal?
Yeah.
The worst thing is the next time I go to the library and I'm reading something else and I stumble on an answer to the previous episode. I'm like, dang it. If I just waited a day, I could have added that. But I have no way of knowing because, I'm in another court case or I'm in another docket
Hmm.
or I'm in another house or whatever. And I'm like going, well, look what was going on. They were stealing this guy's wife or whatever. So, like
Hmm.
one of the guys the other night, I realized afterwards, and I came back and edited it. That was one of the few times I've edited it. But he was he was married to his niece, his
Oh, mercy.
biological niece. I'm like, no wonder they're crazy. I mean,
Hmm.
that was, and these were well-to-do, very educated, early 1840s. I mean, they knew better, but they still did. I mean, it's not unusual to marry cousins. That's been a thing in cultures, not just ours in the South. I mean, that's still a thing that's in other cultures. It is not that unusual. But there's just like this sacrosanct thing. You don't marry your daughter, your sister's daughter. That's just nasty.
Yeah, that's like connecting a loop.
Yeah, that's just nasty. So,
Right.
but it
Oof.
happened.
Yeah.
So, eh, who knows? Anyways, I want to thank you so much for coming on this show. And I do hope as we get closer to Porch Fest, I do hope you'll come on and maybe a couple of times to update what's going on and
Yeah.
to start generating interest and we can get more people there.
Right
I'd
on.
love to make
Yeah,
it standing room only and people outside waiting to get in.
I would too. I mean, someone asked the other day, like, what's your number? What are you looking for? I was like, I want 2,500 people there.
Let's
And
make it happen.
and their jaw dropped, and I was like, it's very doable.
It is. Let's,
It is so doable.
uh-huh.
And so I mean, like just with like this episode, I wouldn't mind like cross pollinating. I wouldn't mind like if you don't mind, uh, I'll throw this cross pollinate it.
Let's do it.
And I mean, if we decide like a couple weeks down the road, and you come on Porch Talk, and we're talking about the blues and like what you've been working on with the grave sites or whatever else, I'll cross pollinate it, and we'll just go back and forth like we did tonight.
I'd love that. I'd love to come back and talk about the new movie that's coming out on Mississippi John Hurt. That's a documentary that was just finished that we didn't we had part of it, but not we just were more of a supporting agent. And I need to introduce you to John Hurt's granddaughter, Mary Frances, and you should have her on your she looks just
I
like him. She even wears his
I
hat. She has one of his bowlers she wears all the time.
I would love that. And with those documentaries, even like when I go back and watch, I think it's free on YouTube now with the Fat Possum,
Uh-huh.
or even like going back and looking at some of the early Robert Johnsons, or all that. I was like, yeah, you're living too much in the fantasy. Like a lot of these things that you're saying is
Mhm.
like it's hearsay. Like, do I believe he went to the crossroads? No. I think he got laughed out of town, and he ended up learning how to play guitar with someone who happened to hang out in a graveyard. I mean,
Well,
that's
here's what we know. He lived in Baptist in Greenwood. Baptist
right.
Town is an African American community. You can still go down there. You can take a tour. Um, his house has now been destroyed, but the men of Baptist Town, the trucks would come by to pick up the men and the women to go work in the cotton fields. And Honey Boy Edwards lived down there. He lived right next door to him, like two houses down, like right, two houses down.
Mhm.
But but Robert Johnson would literally hide under his bed so that when they looked in his window, they couldn't see him because they only made like 50 cents a day. But he could make $1 to $1.50 a night sitting in a chair down in Baptist Town when he wasn't playing in a juke somewhere, when he wasn't playing in a a house party or whatever. And so folks would come and spend their money they just earned in the fields. And he was sitting at home shredding all day while they were at work. So he was
Mhm.
just woodshedding and learning new stuff. I mean, let's be honest. It's just hours and hours of work.
Yeah, I mean, like I do believe in that 10,000 hour rule, to an extent. If you do anything, like if you sit down with something long enough, you're gonna, unless you're just doing the same thing, no, you're gonna get better. I mean, it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
Even like talking to Jimmy Duck Holmes about, the Bentonia style and
Mm.
Henry Stuckey, and even like when you get the story from somebody else, it's like I've got it. from Jimmy. He may have been a young man at that time when he was learning from Henry, but I was like, I trust his account and the way it's told from him more than I'm going to do your hearsay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he was there.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jimmy's, very interesting, colorful character. But when he gets down to it, he's a very honest man.
Brutally honest.
Yeah, I really like him. I really respect him. Well,
Hmm.
let's do this again.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to get
This
off
was
here.
fun. You and I could talk forever.
I believe so. Well, Shannon, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And pitch your podcast again right now. What's it called?
Porch Talk, and give it a check it out. I've been interviewing musicians from all over the place, creatives and people like Shannon for 5 years, and I would love for you to come check out and see what I've done.
All right. I want to thank you, Alan, and my listeners for coming to the Tom Bigby Tales podcast. And until next time, we'll see you on the Tom Bigby River in Columbus, Mississippi.